on time. Because when we start late, do you ever go to meetings and people are late and you wait for them?
Yeah.
They're late, and those that are on time are getting punished for the people that are late. So never punish good behavior. You're on time. I'm going to get going. I am going to share my screen. I will say that often. Never punish good behavior. It's not fair on those that are turning up, and if they're late, they'll catch up. So today, let's talk about tuning in. How do we make sure people are listening to the value of what we're doing? Does anybody have a challenge with this at all? And just getting people to actually listen and buy into the thing. It can be really challenging. So a little bit about me for those that don't know me. Welcome. We'll get to know each other during the course. Hopefully you will all join in. If you can have your mics on, it's great. And shout out, interrupt me. That's how I like to run these sessions. They're pretty informal. If you don't know anything about me, author of the Change Ninja book series, I am currently working on book 3, which I'm really excited about because it's got zombies in it. I don't know if anyone likes zombies, but it's all about ninjas versus zombies and getting rid of the zombies in our life. There is a course that goes with the books called 4-Day Ninja Challenge. If you're interested, let me know. And the next one is full up now, but we're starting to release dates for in the summer. Or just book in with an audit with me. Bring a challenge. We'll have a cup of tea and natter, and we'll ninja your biggest challenge. So do get in touch if you want to know a little bit more. It's all based on real life stories. I haven't made this up sitting behind my desk. I've actually been there and got the t-shirt. So if you've not been to my session, you won't know this. If you have, you will. I always ask for your greatest hopes and fears. You've given up 45 minutes of your time today, so I'm guessing you've come for a purpose. What do you want? What would be the best thing that I could do for you today? And is there anything you don't want me to do? Any fears that you've got? So have a think, and when you're ready, just shout them out and I will capture them down. So greatest hopes for today for the next 40 minutes. Any fears that you've got? My biggest fear is everyone's shy and you don't interact.
I don't think I've got any fears. I don't think there's any fears for this particular session, but I'm hoping, yeah, like John's just put up, like the practical hints and tips, and just to get some clarity. I think sometimes you go into it and it could be a bit of fog, but just to get that clarity and understand. And I'm quite keen to interact with other people. God, I've probably shown that because I haven't stopped talking since I joined the meeting.
That's what I like. That's my hope. People talk.
But it is to get that across. I have found it's that direction, and it's getting people's buy-in. And also, probably another issue I do have is that then I don't know when to stop, so I will be quiet.
Okay.
But it's giving people that opportunity to respond to you. But sometimes you just feel like you have to shout over the top of everybody to get your point across, and it doesn't get you anywhere whatsoever.
It doesn't get you anywhere, which I will talk about. Good afternoon, Andrea. So we have a few more people talking. We're just starting with our hopes and fears. Does anyone have any fears? Anything you don't want me to do today? I like the fearless. I have a fear that people don't join in. I can't see that many faces, which I can understand, but it would be lovely to see you if possible. And it will be as interactive, but you can use the chat function. So Israq, you want to get the message across. Message across, and your fear sounding like people don't know what I'm talking. Is that a fear about me? I don't know what I'm talking about. I am joking. So fear of, I guess, people questioning you and what you're saying. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to run at speed today because we haven't got that long. So we've got no fears. The fear is that people start to question you and your knowledge, or that it's you. The problem is you. How could we get rid of that fear? What could we do about that on a daily basis? Any ideas? Okay, I've got some ideas. It's not you, it's everybody, and nobody knows what they're talking about. And I really believe that's true. It's just some people know a little bit more than others, so they come across as more like, but nobody knows. I came up with this conclusion when I went to a conference. I was just kind of getting on the scene of doing conference talks, And I was asked to sit on the panel at the end as one of the experts. And I was like, I don't know anything, but I knew a little bit more than the people that turned up for the conference. And that's all I needed, just to have a little bit more that they could get from it. And I realized sitting on that panel of experts that none of us really knew what we were talking about. We just found a way to articulate it slightly better than those that were listening. So I perhaps shouldn't give that secret away. But honestly, no one really knows what they're talking about. They've just managed to find a way of presenting it and perhaps knowing a little bit more. We all know a little bit more than somebody else about something. So it's just so it's not you, it's everybody. And you do know what you're talking about. If people respond badly, it's perhaps because they don't understand. So that's another thing to notice. Quite often people are responding badly based on an emotional response. And I will explain more about that as well. Sounds like the headline of a job description. It's fantastic. Right, so we've got rid of the fears. Our hopes, then we want some practical hints. We want to find a way through the fog with a little bit more direction and be able to get our message across. How does that sound as an agenda? All good? Fabulous. If this is a rubbish agenda, is it my fault or your fault? I do this joke every week.
Our fault.
It's not my, it is, it's your fault. This is your first tool. See if you do hopes and fears. People come along, they're like, I'm not sure whether I can speak up, whether I can have my camera on. I've got this thing I'm worried about. And that's all they're focused on. They're not interested. They're not interested. They're not focused on what you're here to do because they're worrying about something else that's going on in the background. So get rid of the fears and it creates the safe space. And it means that when you do this, people start to trust that you'll listen to them. So it really creates a very positive environment. Then put the hopes into an agenda. It saves you having to write an agenda. It means you're all aligned around the agenda because you've designed it and will focus on what you all want to do today. So it's a really, really good tool for creating alignment. It might seem a bit weird when you first do it. So have a fear that you all think I'm a bit weird for doing this. But honestly, people will get used to it really quickly and it really focuses you in on what you need to do. Nikki, you were talking about all of those meetings. If you do this at the start of those meetings, they'll perhaps be shorter because there perhaps aren't any hopes. People have just turned up because they've been invited. But nobody knows why they're here. So the fear is that I waste an hour of my time and I don't really need to be here. It's like, okay, let's end the meeting. So it starts to get rid of some of that stuff that nobody's really willing to say out loud. So give it a go. It's a great tool. So I did a poll. What's the biggest reason the value of your change doesn't stick? And there's a clear winner there. They don't know what's in it for them. We've all been on projects-led change where we've got a list of benefits and and still people are saying no. We all had experience of that. He's like, but this is going to be really good. And they don't get it. They're still turning their back on it, finding reasons to say no. It's normal. And so we need to think about how do we present things to all different types of people in different ways. I have done this. There was, if you weren't here, I think it was 2 or 3 sessions ago, there's a session on benefit blindness, which kind of goes with this. So might be worth having a look at that. We can put the link in. It's on the YouTube channel if you want to know a little bit more about benefit blindness. But what you need to understand is the brain. So if you can imagine your brain as a rider and an elephant, I have stolen this from somebody else whose name I can't remember. It's not mine. But it's a good analogy. Think of your brain as a rider and an elephant, and think of the rider as the as the rational, logical processing part of your brain, the bit that does all the problem solving. And think of the emotional part of the brain as an elephant. Now, if you're trying to get from A to B, and the rider wants to go one way, the logical brain wants to go one way because it makes sense, but the emotion is not really responding in the same way and it thinks that's the wrong way and it's going to end badly for you, which one's going to win? The rider or the elephant? Who's going to get their way? The elephant's going to win because it's much, much bigger and much more powerful. So if you've engaged the emotion and you've not engaged it in the path that you want to take people on, guess what? It's going to go a different way. And what happens when this happens, you can't get your logic back on. You can't beat the emotional elephant with the logic. It just won't work. If you've ever been angry and someone tells you to calm down, it doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's logical to calm down. It's emotional to react badly. And you overreact. We never calm down when someone tells that. The emotion wins. Has anyone ever been on a diet or tried to reduce their midweek drinking or something like that? And you're sitting on a Wednesday night, it's been really hard, and you're like, oh, I really want a biscuit, I really want a Jaffa cake. Andrew, I think you like the Jaffa cakes. I really want a Jaffa cake, but I really shouldn't have promised I wouldn't have one all week. You up to a point, you'll resist. There'll be a point when you give in. We've all done it. We've all done it. And it's the emotion that's pulling. The emotion is going, I just want it. And it will win over that resistance, because we can only resist it so far. And then you find yourself rationalizing that decision as if you had actually logically made that decision to have the biscuit or the glass of wine or the beer. And you justify it by saying, I'll go to the gym for an extra 10 minutes, or I'll have cold Friday, I'll go sober all weekend. You start to rationalize it because it's your own brain. So this is going on all of the time. So if you trigger that emotion and it's not on the path that you want to trigger it on, once their rational logic comes back on, it's going to convince themselves that they're right, which is going to be even harder to shift, because then you've got the rider and the elephant going in the wrong direction. Does that make sense to everyone? I think it's a really good analogy to remember. The elephant will win. So you want to get that elephant on the path that you want to get it on. So for today's example, I'm thinking about presenting this at a big level. So again, if you want the how to sell benefits to everybody, I would go and look at the benefit, the selling benefits one that we did a couple of weeks ago. Imagine you've got a change project, you've got your big presentation, you've written your 50-page document that's got all of your information in it and sent it out and hopes everyone's read it, but they probably haven't. Has anyone been in that situation?
Yeah, today.
Yeah, okay. So you're there, you've got the nerves going as well, so the emotions kicking in. And you go up and you present your thing. Let's imagine it's an exciting AI project. You're really excited about it. We're all talking about digital transformation and AI and all the things it can do. We're going to be ahead of the curve. We're going to be like really seen as these great people doing all of this great stuff. We'll be much more productive. We'll be much more effective. People will see us as a world-class business of choice, and it's going to give us back more time so we can do lots of things. They're all the kinds of words that we put in presentations, seeing strategies, yeah. Familiar with, they seem ring true of things that we see. Is anyone a best in world-class business? Has anyone got that in the strategy strapline? I used to work in the NHS, and our strategy was world-class health service. I was like, what does that even mean? Even if we could do it, which we can't with the NHS, what does it mean? So the thing with this is it sounds exciting. You know, you've got all your facts, your figures, your data, your benefits, all of that listed. So you're not worried. You're trying to sell it and do this showpiece. The challenge with this is you're transmitting all of the things that you know about in a way that you think will work and get that elephant on the right path. So what you're transmitting, and if you think about transmission and receivers, they're not necessarily the same thing. So you're in transmit mode. You're putting it out there. Everyone will receive it in a different way and will hear different things. This exciting new project, it's more change, and I've already got enough on my plate. We'll be ahead of the curve. What's wrong with us now? We'll be more productive and effective. Are you telling me I'm not effective just now? We'll be world class. What does that even mean? We'll give you back more time. Are you going to, does that mean job cuts? You don't know how your message is going to be received. And once you've got that emotional elephant triggered, it's going to go the way it wants to. It's going to be much, much harder to get your rider engaged and get the emotional elephant under control. So how do we deal with that? We don't go out and try and sell things in that super excited way. The thing is, you know all of the data. So you know that this is a good thing. They don't know all the data because they've not really read your 50-page report. So they have a lot of uncertainty about this. And unless you give them certainty about the thing that they will be most worried about, then not the emotion's going to be triggered. So your aim is to, you know, that emotions receiving it, it's going a different path to you. What you're trying to do is engage the emotion and the logic on the path that you're trying to take people on. So think about who's in the room. Who's in that room that you're trying to persuade around this business case, perhaps? You're likely to have finance, HR might be there, the union might be there, particularly if you work in public sector, particularly if it's an AI thing. They're already up in arms about AI. You might have IT there, and you've got procurement there, for example. So think about who's in the room. And then before you go anywhere near a presentation or writing your paper, think about what they want to know. What's the thing that won't trigger the emotional elephant, that will feed the rational, logical processing bit and make them feel that this is a good thing? What are the questions that what are the questions they're going to have that they're going to be most anxious about? So think about the list of things that's going to trigger their emotional thing, because you might have all of the answers to it in your 50-page document. They've not read it. And if they're looking through it whilst you're doing your presentation, because it's the first time they've seen it, all they're doing is flicking electronically through those 50 pages, trying to find the answer to their question, which will be buried somewhere. It'll be in there, but it'll be buried somewhere. And they'll see other things. So one, they're not engaged. And two, they're looking for specific things and it's not upfront. So the emotional elephant's already triggered. So what do they want to know? What do each of those types of people want to know? So as an example, how much is it going to cost? How much will it save? Typical finance stuff. They're only interested in that. Is it going to impact on our jobs? The union, HR are going to be asking questions like that. How long do we have to tie into some long forever procurement contract? So all procurement are interested. Everyone's only interested in their bit of this. What are they on the supplier list? Do we need to go out to tender? All of that stuff. Is it a priority IT project? What's not going to happen if we do this? We're already extended. Which departments are going to be impacted? Again, HR managers want to know if it's them. What does that mean for training plans? What do HR have to do? Which processes are we looking at? Is it going to affect our job? Is it going to affect our customers? What's the impact on staff morale? What's the impact of... You don't know when you go out and just transmit your great, exciting project, what people are going to be thinking about. But if you think about, I'll come to you in a minute, Michelle, if you think about who's going to be in the room and think about the questions that they're likely to ask, guess what? We can answer them up front rather than waiting to the questions after your presentation when they've already disengaged. They're already on that emotional path. Michelle?
Not sure whether anybody else has had this, but I've done this in a very agile space, and we always have to believe or think as well in terms of customer value. So how's this going to, yes, impact them, but how are we going to keep delivering customer value? And that would be one of the top goals on there.
This isn't about the goals of your project. This is about getting everybody on board with your project so that they ask about the goals.
Okay, so the reduction in cost savings, which could be delivered into delivering customer value, because we can lower the actual cost.
If there's a customer value, if there's someone in the room who's got a really dying, burning need to know about customer value, then that's one of your questions. Think about who's in the room. So this isn't about selling your project from a benefits perspective. This is about, we've got this really exciting project. We've worked through it. We know it's going to work and deliver good stuff. But how do we get that board or to sign off on the business case to get behind this? And what we're trying to do is get them all on board with their emotion and the logic. And they're all going to have different thoughts about this project. So if you can think about what questions they might ask you, because the challenge is, if you present your great exciting thing, they're all flicking through, looking for the information that's pertinent to them. And then you get to the end and they've all got the questions. That's when it kind of, you know, and then you start getting derailed because they're all shouting at stuff. And you're like, it's in the paper. Why didn't you read the paper? So we're into an emotional discussion. Whereas this way, what we're doing is thinking about the questions before we start. Is this going to, yeah, exactly. Brilliant. John, will it expose me? How do I do it without making that? So these are really good questions, because what we do now is we say, okay, with those questions, which ones are the most worrying, anxiety making? Which ones are the highest in terms of fact and interest? And then we just stick them on to move them to the right hand side. So which ones do we really need to bring up front? You've got all your information. You've got, in terms of who's there, you've got the questions they're likely to ask. Before you get into the detail of your report, your 50-page business case, whatever it is, you're probably thinking, how much is this going to cost and how much will it save? You're probably worried that this is going to be impacting on jobs. You've got the answers, but instead of you trying to scrabble around and remember what they are at the end of the presentation, you present them up front. You don't just present them up front in the presentation, you present them up front in your business case. The first page of your business case should be the answers to the questions that people are going to be triggered by emotionally if they don't have the data. Because if you tell me that this is going to cost me £5.50 and it's going to save me £25 a year, I'm probably going to be much more interested in reading about how you're going to do that. I'm probably going to go and read the paper proper. And then I'm going to probably ask pertinent questions that you'll be able to answer. But emotionally, I'm on the same path. This sounds good. It's going to cost a little bit. It's going to save us lots of money. Yeah, I want to know more. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to get everybody in the curious, wanting to know more path towards signing this off. Early and late, it's really just to help you identify the most pertinent questions, John. So you'll come up with lots of questions. You think that's not actually gonna shift them that much at the start. So you want the answers to all of the questions in your report and in your presentation, perhaps in your presentation, but definitely in your report. But what you really want to do is those really upfront worrying, anxiety, or facts that people are going to ask about straight away. You want them upfront, page 1, and you want them upfront in your presentation. Because again, we're trying to keep them emotionally engaged and on the same path. And when we do this, we're answering the things that they're worried about. You've given them an answer, so they've got the data. The emotion calms down. The logic is much more in control. They will ask you lots of questions, but they'll be proper logical questions. So it won't be them sitting behind going, we can't afford this, don't know where we're thinking about budgets, all of that stuff that's distracting them. And when I say emotions, that's, it's the distraction stuff. It's the trying to put it in place with other things. So what's the most important? What's the things that are going to worry them the most, or that they're going to ask for data up front, and just present the data? These are the things I think you're probably most interested in knowing the answers to. So it's not about whether the customer value thing's important or not. It's whether anyone in the room is really interested in that question at the start. Is it the thing they want to know? And if it is, then pop that in. And it will save you time, because quite often when you do this and you write this up on the first 2 pages, everything else becomes an appendix because they're not interested in the detail. You need to have the detail, of course you do, there's audit and all of that stuff, but most people don't want to read the 50-page document with all the detail. They just want the answer to their questions. So if you can put that up front and answer it, they may not agree, they may come back with more questions, but you've got rid of the emotional bit. They're still in the rational, logical bit. They're still in charge of their emotional brain. And that is key to getting people on board, is keeping them in charge, keeping them in the logical space rather than responding emotionally. Debbie, you need to work this out yourself before the meeting. So if you've got a team or if you've got someone you can sit down with, who's going to be in that space? What are the questions they're going to ask? The more you can brainstorm those questions, so it does help doing it with somebody else, and then put them on, move them to the right-hand side, and then make sure your paper that you send out beforehand and your presentation answers the questions up front. This is, we've still got quite a wee bit of time. So, what you're transmitting then becomes this exciting AI project will cost us this, but we've projected the savings of this. And if you need the detail, it's on page 42 in the appendix. We know that IT's requirements, IT's quite tight for requirements. We estimate we need this old time equivalent, but we don't need to do these other 3 projects. So that will free up that time. It will impact on this department and that department, but we know they've got a high vacancy rate, they can't fill it, and there's low scores on their surveys in terms of retention, and we've predicted that this will motivate, improve, whatever it is. You're presenting that up front. You've tamed all of those emotional elephants in like 1 or 2 slides, which means the logical discussions can then kick in. Getting the emotion out of all of this is key to this, because again, it's not about people agreeing, but it's about logical discussion with backed up by facts and data. And when you do that, you'll get a much better thumbs up response. It might need to go away and do some stuff. You might need to go away and change some things because they will have data you don't know, but it will be data driven rather than opinions, thoughts, beliefs, and ego driven. So I'm going to pause there and I'm just going to run around the room actually and see if that makes sense or questions. Nikki.
Yep, that all absolutely makes sense. And I could see how I could put that into practice. I mean, try and do some of that, but it depends on who you've got in the room, and that's absolutely key, what you put on the left-hand side there.
Yeah. And it might be that different people from, it might be depending on whether it's Bill or Mary from HR that will have different questions. So you do need to adapt this. But again, Ninja's all about working out who the people are, what the people might think, and adapting to that. So it might seem like more work if you do this 2 or 3 times in different ways, but it will save you a heap of time and emotion if you do it. And it will probably save you writing lots of pages.
Yeah,
because
I mean, in the example we had today, so I did a first steering for this program, and we had people from all across the business, and tried to keep it. And when you're dealing with a certain level, that you're only going to get a certain amount of time, and they're going to switch off after 30 seconds. Yeah. 30 seconds is probably a bit harsh, but they're going to switch off, aren't they? So I was trying to keep it punchy, but then it was actually okay because one of the people from the operations team actually said, I would like some time with you afterwards because I'd like to understand more about it. But it didn't mean that everybody else had to sit there and listen to half an hour of waffle. It could have been perceived as waffle. So it does work, but there's always room for improvement, for absolute definite.
Perfect. And if you can get that, it might be you need half an hour with everybody after the meeting to go into the detail for them.
Yeah.
But again, that means they're getting the attention they need, they're getting to ask the questions that they want to ask, and you're keeping everybody on board. So if you do that and you spend a day doing that, half an hour with everyone, but they all back it and support your project, then your project is going to be delivered successfully, and it will just save a lot of grief further down the line. Thanks for sharing that example, Nikki.
No worries.
John, I'm not sure if you're able to switch your mic on. So you've just popped in the chat. Yeah. We're all triggered emotionally all the time. It's not about running down the corridor or screaming into a dark room. Anything that's got an emotive word in it is an emotive response. Hazel.
Yeah, I think it was all kind of really useful, makes sense, and I can see how I could use it. There's a project at the moment that we're trying to articulate exactly what that project looks like going forward, and there's definitely a lot of emotion around it, and I'm gonna call it fluff. It's not quite, things aren't clear, so I think I can try and use this to try and bring clarity and trying to get the business people to give the clarity of what it is they want as well.
Brilliant. Fluff's a great term, and it's used, there is a lot of fluff around stuff. The challenge with fluff is people might all nod and say and smile, but they're not agreeing on the inside. So getting rid of that fluff up front can really help as well, because then you've got very clear data and agreements up front that people can't go back on. So great word. Thank you, Hazel. Andrea.
Hi, yeah, totally makes sense. I was just thinking about a meeting I had earlier today, though, and I was trying to explain a change, and one of my biggest things is that I don't actually have the solution yet. So that there is no it's all quite the solutions are moving at the minute, so it's quite difficult to get that hard data and this, and because I can predict their questions quite easily. Like I know the culture here, I know the people here, so I can predict the questions, but it's the answers that we're still faffing about. But yeah, we're sharing the information anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a, you know, if you're comfortable saying we don't know yet.
Yeah.
We you know, we've got all of your questions.
They're comfortable, Tammy. Wouldn't they comfortable? But I'm saying that anyway.
But that can shift people's responses as well, because it is showing an emotion, because it's a vulnerability. People will typically respond.
And hopefully help out, try to find a solution as well. Yeah.
So they will offer support, but people generally will. Most people aren't bad.
No.
So they will support you if you show that level, but it can be hard to do. It depends who it is, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yes, that made complete sense. I definitely, one of the things is that I haven't really thought about that before, thinking into their emotions, but like everybody else as well, I know the people, I know roughly what they are worried about, but again, the facts and the figures to back that up is sometimes not always there. So sometimes it's hard to know what the retention is, you know, so it's just trying to find that more than anything else, to try and convince them that this will help, the efficiency will help, because we haven't measured how long these processes are normally. So that's sometimes the business case is all about trying to convince them to start in the process and measuring that process, you know?
Yeah, the challenge with efficiency is it's thrown at every single project. And, you know, quality of staff, efficiency, productivity. My question is, what's the I would go back and say, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Because if you don't know how much a solution is going to make you more efficient, how do you know there's an actual problem of efficiency that needs fixing?
Yeah.
So I would approach that in a different way and go back to what is the problem that we need to fix, and get people bought into the problem statement rather than the solution.
Right. Yeah, that makes more sense, because they always talk about we need to attain efficiency, but they never really tell us how much efficiency or what that really means.
Yeah. So what's the problem? What's actually not happening because you haven't got an efficiency program?
Yeah.
And it's quite often a very different problem, which might have different solutions. So I would push back on that and go back to the actual, what is the problem we're trying to fix? Because if you can't measure efficiency, then how do you know it's a problem?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
There is one, it's called Gap Leap, the tool. I can't remember which session it is, but one of the sessions does cover how to do that. Thank you, Debbie. John B, you've commented, I think you can't switch the mic on. John Ridley. Don't know if you can switch your mic on. Michelle.
It's difficult when you're contracting and you're new. You don't actually get to find out how people think and the emotional sort of state. So I guess you have to generalize when you go in with the business plan and just think on a general basis. So it helped, you know, just to have the general, these are the questions that you would have to think about when you're going in, and the answers, how to answer them. So it did respond.
I mean, if depending on the situation, you might be able to have a conversation, 5-minute conversation with people beforehand, but I think it is more challenging. I think the opposite of that is when you are relatively new and you don't know, you'll try and bamboozle people with all of the stuff that you've put together. You'll try and have all of your areas covered, you know, and you'll have all of that, but the key messaging might get lost within all of that. But you can normally work out, you know, what finance are going to ask. They're only interested in money. IT are only interested in where's the resource coming from. I'm not saying that's the only thing they're interested in, but these are the things that if you can't respond to up front, they're emotionally on a different journey. So it's just to get that engagement piece quick and early. Thanks, Michelle.
I think I would have done some background work anyway, and talked to them before, you know, smelling beforehand.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Super. Nikki.
I think they did me already. Unless
Oh,
you want me
done
to go
you?
again.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I did. I started
I'll
with
come
you.
back
because
again.
I was looking at cameras and then I moved to the people list. Sorry. Have you got another example? Because that was a great one earlier.
Trying to think if I have. It's a big program of work that we're doing, and there are actually, to build on what you said before, it is the personalities.
Yeah.
Just to understand, and it's difficult, as Michelle said, if you're contracting, it's very difficult because you don't have that relationship. I mean, I've moved from a couple of companies recently for different circumstances, but it does help, doesn't it? You do your homework when you go in, even if you haven't been there too long.
Yeah.
Just go out and start introducing yourself to people. But as you say, you've got common themes across the board, haven't you? Because the same questions will come out whatever company you work for.
Yeah. I mean, my example, this isn't a real example. I just made it up because I know that's I've been there and seen it and done it.
Yeah.
It might be you can, send out an email individually to people before and say, what's your key questions that you might have? So, because I'd like to come prepared. And again, that listening thing, if you're doing that, it's like doing your hopes and fears. Do the hopes and fears virtually before the session. What's your biggest hope for this meeting? What would you like out of it? Is there anything you don't want me to do? Then use that to do your presentation and to make sure you do the hopes right up front. Because then they're also hearing that you've listened, you've asked their input, you've listened to it, and you're responding to it. So the receiver's now going, you're a good person, you're going to do the right things for me. And if you do that for everybody, then they're all going to be receiving the right message from you as the leader in leading this piece of work. So all about that sort of upfront preparation, research, and trying to keep the elephant and the rider engaged on the same path.
Actually, I've thought of another example, which was a workshop we had the other day with our tech team, and I could see that one of the invitees had the invite forwarded to her, and she looked like she was caught in the headlights. She's like, and I thought, she's lost. She really doesn't know. So just reached out to her separately and said, let's put a meeting in.
Yeah.
Somebody also, it's when actually there was one question I was going to ask as well about what happens when you get people who try and derail it. So you start off on one tangent and then they put their own agenda in, and it's getting it back because other people might then jump on the bandwagon and go, oh, that's a good question. And you like, no, do you know what? We need to bring it back on track.
That's a good one, and it depends what the derail is. If someone's asking a question that you don't have the answer to, and it's not personal, I would say it's a great question. I don't have the answers. Can I pick up with you after? If somebody comes in saying that's the wrong solution, I don't think that's how we should be doing it, I would put the onus on and say, well, what would you recommend would fix this problem? So be very, very clear again on what your problem statement is you're trying to fix, because quite often we get fixated on a solution like the efficiency thing. We need to be more efficient, but what's the problem we have? So make sure you know what the problem is that you're trying to fix, that this is a solution for. And rather than arguing about the solution, say, well, why don't we go back and look at the problem statement again and what solutions we think, I think this would fix it because of X, but what do you think is the right solution? Because their solution is just going to be that, what they've got in mind is probably not going to fix the problem. Because if it was, you probably got that in already because you've done your homework. So it's hard to do that, but I just turn the tables on them. But yeah. Let's talk about it after, because I genuinely don't have the information to respond to that, which again shows it takes a bit of courage and bravery. It shows a level of vulnerability. Apologies, I don't have that information, but I'll go and find it and I'll come back to you and share it with everyone once I've got it. And if they keep going, other people will probably tell them to stop.
Yeah.
So, use the power of the crowd for that. It's hard to do that. A really good thing to do is because it will catch you off guard and you might respond emotionally because it's triggered you. So if you can just pause and do a bit of deep breathing to get your logic back engaged, because it's so easy to respond and answer them, and just noticing that you feel, that they've triggered you. You'll notice a feeling in your tummy, and just breathe and think of your response. So a lot of this, bad characters in the room is managing your response to them and not letting your elephant win. So we've all we've kind of done a learn by sharing by just doing the call around. So hopes and fears. I've got 3 minutes left. Do you feel now that it's not you and people will question you less, that you've got a bit more confidence around doing that? I can't remember who said the old questioning thing. Have any of those fears come true? Have we managed to find a way to perhaps move past them? I didn't do role play either, if anyone had that, and you did interact, which was my fear. Hopes. Have we got some practical hints, a little bit way through the frog, a little bit more direction, and a way to get our message across better?
I think so.
Yeah, it's always about the emotion. Thanks, John. So you delivered your agenda. Well done. So try your hopes and fears, because it's a good way to do it as well. And actually, Nikki, in response to that, if you do hopes and fears at the start of that meeting, instead of just launching into your presentation, then that person who's going to be awkward will mention it there, and you can get rid of it straight away.
Yeah, that'd be a really good approach actually to use next time, because we've got another workshop next week and I'm ready.
Yeah, it gets rid of it, because I don't think this is the right solution. Because so you say, well, how do we get rid of that? Do we focus on looking at what we've got today in the presentation, and I'll go away and find out about that? How could we stop that derailing this discussion, because we've got quite a lot to get through today? And other people will tell them to shut up. Is my experience. So doing your hopes and fears at the start. See you later, Andrea. Thank you. Is a really good way to do that. And then if you've got your hopes and you're all aligned around it, do we all agree this is what we're doing today? And they bring up something else, say, look, we're going to need to park it because we've got this agenda. So if we've got time at the end, we'll come back to it. So it's just giving you more stuff to hang those those responses off and push back on them. And you've got a room full of people, so they're going to stick to it as well. So you start to quieten down those loud voices, of which there's always one, isn't there? There's always one.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant. So thank you for coming. We are bang on time. I should have probably put in, if you want to put in an audit with me and bring a challenge, please do. If you want to know more about the courses, the May one is actually, I've not updated that, it's now full, but we've got dates coming out for the summer if you want to find out about that. And I can't remember what the next one is. I should have put it in here, but I'll put that in instead. Because I'm not always as organized as I should. We have one 2 weeks today, is session number 12, which I'm sure we'll let you know. See, I got it wrong. Be vulnerable, own up. People will forgive you. I'm sure it'll be on something really, really interesting, but we'll definitely ninja, and it'll have a new tool in to help you ninja your way through your change. So thank you for coming this afternoon. We'll share the video, and again, look at the list on YouTube for the benefits one and the gap leap one about problem solving. If you need to work on your problem statement, hopefully see you in a couple of weeks.
Take care.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.